Think about all the cultures he finds in the song. He goes to Egypt and captures the sound of a mummy, right? Malenko, all the aesthetics is like Egyptian and then like Middle Eastern vibe. So it's like, that's his introduction to starting to find the groove. That was most people's introduction to ICP.
Yo, it's Hatchet Chat with Lars and Snax. Your juggalo homies talking hatchet tracks. There's hatchet beats and hatchet raps. The whole catalog's packed full of classic gems, and we talk about them all on Hatchet Chat. Whoop, whoop.
But we ain't weak and shoddy. Juggaloing ain't a hobby. This is the 5th Shaggy 2 Dope solo project, and we're really excited to talk about it. Hi, I'm MC Lars.
What up, y'all? I'm MC Snax. I hope you guys are excited about all this flavor we're getting late spring. As excited as Lars and I are for it anyway, which is very excited. We're going to be doing some Hatchet Chats to reflect the new dope stuff that's coming out. Starting with this one, Professor Shaggs presents, or no, oh my gosh, I'm like Manny on the Twitch Shaggy show. It's Shaggy 2 Dope presents Professor Shaggs and the Quest for the Ultimate Groove. What do you think about this one, Lars?
Well, Shaggy's done a lot of solo stuff. And when f.t.f.o came out in 94, people were like, this dude can rhyme. And then when f.t.f.o came out, people were like, this dude can rhyme. He's got hooks and he's got some great beats. When f.t.f.o MF came out, people were like, oh, and he's got something to say. The Benedict Arnold outro about the twisted stuff. Gloomy Sunday came out. We're like, all right, this guy could put out a tour project. And then this came out and it's like, he could really write songs. And there's a lot of cool themes on this record. The Bloody Sunday record was a great concept record. But like, Shaggy delves into a lot of different material than Jay does. And I love this record. What do you think, Snax?
I love it too, man. It sounds so good. I know we were talking about, it's one of the first things we talked about. Like, it's crisp, it's clean. Like, Shaggy sounds so comfortable and confident over these beats. A lot of Shaggy the Airhead production, Trey Pound, Shaggy 2 Dope himself along with DJ Clay. Just a great, well-rounded EP. It's just a fun listen.
It's a really great sounding record. And I want to talk about how like it has a lot of Memphis trap influence. There's like the schism that happened in trap where you have like the Atlanta trap and then Memphis. And like Memphis, you know, is the origin of horrorcore. So like I want to talk about how that's throughout this record, and that's why I love it so much, because it's so timeless. So the EP, I didn't know this. Fans submitted the titles via email, and then it was voted on during a Twitch stream.
Yeah, dude. Such a cool way to name the EP. Of course, Shaggy is going hard on Twitch. The Shaggy Show on Twitch, and it's so dope. Yeah, like that's like a main thing that Shaggy is doing, and he kind of incorporated that into his actual like music output. Juggalos were able to submit, you know, EP name suggestions, 16 of which were picked, and then on a Twitch Shaggy Show stream, the final 16 were voted on, and this was the one that made it. So I thought that was super cool.
George Clinton, who ICP love and tried to get on Malenko, and they sampled on Dog Beats, has had some funny art titles over the years. There's Funkin' Teleki versus the Placebo Syndrome, The Clones of Dr. Funkenstein. This feels like it could be like a George Clinton album. And at the gathering last year when I was doing the graffiti seminar and Shaggy came out and I asked him about his favorite hip hop albums, he talked about Africa Bambaataa and Planet Rock and Renegades of Funk. And I asked about his favorite album, old school hip hop album art pieces. And it's interesting because Planet Rock, the old school image is the dudes in space flying past the planet, and it's got like the science fiction vibe. So like it's a crying planet. So like that's an homage to that, I think. And Tell These Bees from f.t.f.o MF is an interpolation of Planet Rock.
Right.
So it's a little different. And then the Renegades of Funk is like the famous superhero album cover, Africa Bambaataa, that like Shaggy likes, that he mentioned at the gathering. So it's like, okay, you can see a lot of the influences. Yesterday, just randomly, I'm working on something with Tom Wood, and we were talking about, I told him how much I like the art. And he was like, you know, when I do something for Shaggy, Shaggy's like, it's great. And he's like, Jay always has 1,000 suggestions of things to change. But he's like, in the end, it doesn't change that much. But Shaggy's always like, it's cool, whatever you want. So like, that's
Word.
funny. Look into their creative visual art direction, you know?
It is, dude. And also, it's hard for me to just sweep by the fact that you mentioned Tom Wood is doing something. You're doing something with Tom Wood. I don't want to press you on any of that, but I just feel like I can't let that go without hyping it up a bit. That's fresh.
Yeah, no, he's the man. We met at the gathering and like we're working on something, and he's just a cool dude. The float is going to be dope. I don't want to reveal too much until it's all like inked, but like,
right.
Yeah, Tom Wood nailed the cover art for this because it's the planet. He's crying and the tears are blood, and it's like,
yeah, dude.
It's just like it's dope and different, because when you look at Tom Wood's art, you think of like the Wraith with its flowing robe and scary Malenko, and this is like characters that aren't already in the ICP universe. Obviously, we're showing the art here, and like his left eye is crying, and the blood coming out of there is right in Michigan. It's right in Detroit. So like his left eye is in Detroit, and his right eye is like in the middle of the Atlantic. So I don't know if that's intentional, but the Great Lakes, it's like the red drips from the Great Lakes. So that's tight, man. It's like a shout out to, I don't know, his vision, where they started, left to right, you know what I mean? Michigan to internationally. Maybe it's just
hell
random.
Yeah, dude. That is awesome.
It's tight, right? So let's talk about the distinction between the Memphis trap and Atlanta trap real quick. I touched on this. Memphis trap started in the early 1990s and has like the distinctive lo-fi gritty sound. Tommy Wright III, who's like an old school Memphis kind of horrorcore artist who I love, has some like really dope beats. And I feel like that sound of like the 808 with like the bells and the tuned percussion that's almost musical comes from this. And one of the main differences between Memphis trap and Atlanta trap, Memphis trap is in more minor keys and has kind of like a dissonant vibe, where the Atlanta trap has more like faster tempos, heavy bass, the snappier snares, like hi-hat rolls, and it's got more major key, more of a pop vibe, and it's a little faster. So like T.I., Migos, Future, Young Jeezy, like you have that distinction between, it's almost like a distinction between like 20th century trap and 21st century trap. And so Shaggy's doing like an old school nod, and he has like 80s musical vibes on this, but it's like also like 90s Southern homage to some of these classics. And like, I'll talk about how certain beats remind me of certain artists that I feel like have influenced ICP, because you know they've done stuff with 3-6 Mafia and all that, so it's like it's in their blood. But
right.
This, yeah, you feel me on that. It's an important distinction to make.
Totally. Like, and it sounds like, especially Devereaux, when we were speaking to him, like, it sounds like he is influenced by a lot of that stuff, and even like the newer group Suicide Boys that also throw back to that, and he's been doing that a lot in his production, even with like the pitch down vocal samples. So you know, I'm sure Shaggy's influence plus like Shaggy the Airhead and Devereaux, I couldn't agree more, man. It's a dope mix.
Let's talk about Clown Boy. You want to kick off some knowledge on this one, Snax?
No doubt, man. The EP starts with a banger. Love this track, produced by Shaggy the Airhead, as the first 5 tracks, I believe first 5 right in a row, are all produced by Shaggy. Yeah, Shaggy the Airhead. And basically, it just describes this clown boy character. In a lot of ways, it seems like Shaggy is almost referring to himself, flexing, but he's almost doing it from a third person. And Clown Boy is just this ominous, formidable character, you know, wreaking havoc and stuff. It's funny, too, because this title, Clown Boy, was actually one of the 16 finalists for the EP name contest. And of course, Shaggy is well known for like referring to everything as boy or boys. Like if you know you need like a red marker, you're asking for someone to pass it, you'd be like, give me that red boy. Like everything is boy. He said, I remember one time, I believe it was back on the Palcast, he was like, he knew he had a problem when he referred to polar bears as polar boys. So I guess that has worked its way into like the Shaggy streaming lore. So a Juggalo submitted this name. He liked it enough to at least keep it as an EP track. What are your thoughts on this one, dude?
I like the song a lot. What struck me is that the album doesn't start with an intro. All of Shaggy's solo projects except F.t.f.o and all of ICP stuff usually start with an intro. This goes right into like a full song. And so it's like automatically a departure, which I think is cool. That drew my attention. His flow kind of reminds me of Ouija on this a little bit, and his ad libs remind him of Violent J's solo ad libs, where he'll do like some weird melodic thing echoing in the background after. It's like that's interesting. It's like his take on the new psychopathic vibe. Let's talk about one of the singles, Illuminati Don't Want Me. It's a very strong song with a funny concept, because like the Illuminati, right? The idea that like there's this secret group of people who control the world, almost like the Stonecutters on The Simpsons, right? The Masons, and
Right.
they don't want, even though ICP is legendary, they don't want a scrubby like rap star as part of the Illuminati. It's a really funny concept, you know? It's cool.
No doubt, man. I agree. I love it. It's a banger. Like you said, Shaggy's just kind of flexing about how, you know, the outside world, including the music industry, doesn't really understand the Juggalo world and how he reps for the Juggalos and always will. Dope song, like you said, was released as the first single as a lead up to this EP.
It's the first time in a verse they've done a backronym for Juggalo, right? A backronym is when you take a word and make an acronym based on what you say it stands for. So second verse, he goes, J is for the da-da-da. And they never done that. And I was like, oh, this is a cool place for that. You know what I'm saying? They never spelled out Juggalo and then given each letter what it stands for, you know?
I didn't think about that. I think you're right, dude. That used to always be my like go-to in like language arts class. Like if you had to do a poem, and I always do like the acrostic poem, it was like the cheapest way to like do a poem. So that's dope, but it could be dope when it's done in rap, and this is an example of that.
My friend DJ, who you met at DCG Con in Denver, when he produced so much of my music, and like he'd always tell me, he'd be like, Lars, you can't be rapping and spelling things out, because that was always something I did. I'd spell out words and like spell them out, make them rhyme, connect them. It's like, you can't do that all the time. So it's like, took ICP 30 years to do a Juggalo spell out thing. There's a line on this that I thought was really dope. He says, just like Doctor Strange, your story's got no good end. And I was thinking about that, like, you know, the origin of Doctor Strange, where he has this career-ending accident because he's distracted driving and can't be a surgeon anymore. And it leads to all the magic and craziness that goes through his life. But there's a scene where he has to surrender the title of the Sorcerer Supreme. It happens a few times because he's always like trying to help people in a way that like he misuses his magic to protect others. And Doctor Strange is this really powerful guy who's always kind of like, he's too great for his talent. And he's also like misunderstood a lot. And I thought about how like, that serves as a metaphor for like, maybe Shaggy feels like Doctor Strange, but he's flexing, saying, you're like Doctor Strange, your story's got no good end. But yeah, the idea of Illuminati, black magic, all this stuff, it's just a really clever rhyme. And I was just trying to figure out like specifically, what does he mean your story's got no good end? Because like in the MCU, Doctor Strange is chilling and like things work out for him, but his origin story is bad. And so maybe that's like a metaphor for bad things end up in good things. I don't know. Because if you're telling someone like they're like Doctor Strange, it's a compliment, but he's using it as a diss. But it's also a tight rhyme. I don't know. I thought about that a lot.
Yeah, that is tight. That's interesting to think about it now that you mention it. And it's dope too because, you know, Shaggy did basically a nerdcore rap lyric, which is fresh.
I know. Defy. This one is dope. This track is dope. And I want to talk about some philosophy about it. But like, talk to me about what you thought about Snax.
Yeah, man. Super cool because Shaggy does this sometimes. Like, he'll just kind of like do a concept that's not super literal, and he kind of plays with the abstract. And basically, Shaggy in this is rapping about how he defies all rules, physical and non-physical, talking about the chaos his actions bring. Really kind of hard to nail down in a sentence or two what the song is about, but it comes out as a very fresh result, man. What do you think?
Well, I emailed you about this. Like, this is the kind of stuff I'll email you like 2 a.m. Manichaeism is this Gnostic religion from the 3rd century, from the prophet Mani. And it's this idea that like the world is divided by darkness and light, which is the constant theme through the Dark Carnival. And it's like the Dark Carnival, the clowns are like, we might act like we're repping the side of darkness, but really we're on the side of light. And we're trying to like get into places where angels can't go and bring people to the light. That's like a Manichaean vibe of like most of ICP's discography. But this song is interesting because it subverts that dichotomy. And it's about challenging limitations and boundaries. And like his quote, I defy hate, I defy love. It's like he embodies and defies both of the human extremes of emotions. I defy gravity and all the above. He also defies the physical laws of nature. I defy joy, I defy pain. He defies just the understanding of human experience. Like I defy joy, I defy pain. He's beyond the duality of like sense of what we sense. You can try hate, you can try love. Basically, like you have to make a choice. But in the end, like he's like fronting like I'm bigger than the duality with which you make your decisions. And I think that is just interesting because it's like, I don't know. It's to me, it's symbolic of him stepping out from the ICP mode of the Manichaean vibe of Dark Carnival and being like, look, I'm different and like I can do all of these things because the genre and the styles on this record reflect that. I might be reading a lot into it as I tend to do with these lyrics, but like it's telling in a really interesting intellectual way, these lyrics. I thought, you know what I'm saying? So that's what's up.
Yeah, and like
holler.
It's a deep song. I mean, it's not a literal track, so I think that's what's cool about songs like this. It can be interpreted in many different ways, and when you sent me that Manichaeism flavor, I was like mind blown. That like you said, that dualism is so prominent, and whether it's intentional or not, as far as like the Dark Carnival mythology, it definitely feels connected.
Yeah, man. No, and it does because he's also talking about like he's like you have to make a choice. You can try hate, you can try love, you can try joy, you can try pain. You're gonna have to like figure out how to like bring the right karma in your life. So it does end up going back to like the Dark Carnival Manichaeist vibe. But it's cool. Right. Done giving an F. Tell me about this jam.
Dude, I love this song. This might be my favorite, if not at the very least, one of my favorite Shaggy the Airhead beats. And again, just to reiterate, because we haven't talked about the producers, all these songs so far have been produced by Shaggy the Airhead. And this song is so dope. It was released as the second single leading up to the release. What's really noteworthy is the single art. We'll show it, of course, on the screen for the people watching on YouTube. It was actually done by Shaggy's daughter. And, you know, Shaggy himself told the story of this on the Twitch stream of the Shaggy show, you know, a few weeks before the EP release. But apparently he found a drawing that his daughter did that was like really violent, and you know they were like wondering, is it a big deal? Of course, like you might worry a little bit, but ended up not being a big deal. It was like something from she seen from like a video game or something. So he actually got her to do another violent picture real quick for this EP, which is wild. Crazy EP art, crazy song, just Shaggy going crazy, quite literally talking about how he's done caring and he's just committing all kinds of antisocial behavior. Just a banger. And again, man, Shaggy the Airhead's beat is so dope, and Shaggy 2 Dope just does such a cool job with it. Again, just sounds like he's having fun, you know?
Yeah, the beat lets him have a unique kind of flow. It reminds me of What from Bizarre Bizarre. And it's interesting how twice on this record, his battle raps are about drinking. He talks about my back seat has a steering wheel in the center of my car, and I've only rolled it 3 times so far. He's talking about drunk driving, and then he fronts about it on the next song too. It's like he's sober, but he's like his character's not, which is interesting. The line is, my back seat has a steering wheel in the center of the car, and I've only rolled it 3 times so far, twice when I left the bar. So like I'm reading into it. He's implying that he drank. Maybe he didn't, but you know, maybe. I mean, if you roll in your car leaving a bar, you probably it's not because you saw a squirrel.
The character in that definitely was drinking. Yeah,
I mean, he's done giving an F.
Exactly. Yeah, and like again, going back to when him putting himself in the mindset of what would it be like to not care anymore, it probably would be an addict, you know, relapsing. How You Been? That's another dope track. Again, produced by Shaggy the Airhead. Last one that was produced by Shaggy the Airhead. And this is a cool song. I can't wait to hear what you think about it, Lars, because it's basically Shaggy catching up the listener on what he's been doing over the past years. I know you dug the Malenko reference in the first verse, the House of Horrors. And that is that drinking reference. We were talking about the drinking reference in this song. Catch him chilling in his drinking a beer in his underwear. And the chorus is kind of interesting. I wanted to get your thoughts on that too, because it almost seems like Shaggy expressing his distaste for small talk, which almost reminds me of Memories off of f.t.f.o, because in that song, like, Shaggy's talking about how he's like talking to a bunch of people and he's like having a hard time remembering the encounters they're describing and stuff. And it's almost like the chorus in this song is like he's just not that interested in what someone else has to say, and he keeps telling you about himself. So what do you think of this song, man? I think it's executed perfectly, but again, one of those more abstract concepts, no?
Yeah, and it's got the rolling 808, like the synth sound is the drum machine sound is like a synth that propels. So this one is very much got that Memphis vibe. It makes me think of two classic indie rap songs. One of them is Blah, Blah, Blah from Brother Ali from Shadows on the Sun, where he's talking about being backstage and people are just like trying to promote themselves. And he says, y'all need to listen and look. He goes, y'all need to listen and look and just follow. When we open for y'all, it's still our show. You're talking to me like blah, 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 blah. It's just like, that's like a class. I always love that because it's like, when you're on tour, you always have to make small talk with people, especially when you're like a rapper at their level, because every person who meets them wants something from them. So they're trying to flex and like compare their status and like, I've got status. There's a Watsky song called IDGAF. I don't give an F. Do you know that one? And it's like, he's like, let me tell you about my job and my car and my boyfriend. I don't give an F. Like, it's funny because the verses are Shaggy telling a story, and the chorus are him basically saying, I don't really care about your story, but it's funny because it's like, how you been? Like, I'm asking you because I'm trying to be polite, but you're annoying and I don't really care. So it's like the clown makeup is a mask of having to like exist in the entertainment business. This song is like a psychological parallel to that. How it exists, having to be a social person in an industry where it's very dehumanizing and like, there's a lot of crap and a lot of energy vampires. So he's how you doing? But like, he's got to talk about all the crazy stuff he's doing as a way to like make sure he's dominating the conversation and not getting asked for favors. So anyway, that's my psychologist perspective on that song. Okay, so This Ain't That B, produced by Trey Pound. Talk about this one, Snax.
Man, dope track. First one on the EP that's not produced by Shaggy the Airhead, as you mentioned, produced by Trey Pound. Very dope beat, and it basically is Shaggy talking about how he stands out from other people and other rappers in kind of an exaggerated way. So kind of a simple concept that you can use to basically flex. It's basically like a track where he's flexing, and it's really dope. There's a super cool Carnival of Carnage sample in the hook. On the last song, we got that dope Malenko reference, House of Horrors. Of course, we got a Carnival of Carnage sample. And like some of the lyrics are super dope too because they're true. Like Shaggy he's a fixture in, not just underground rap, but pop culture. So a lot of the flexes he have kind of revolve around his staying power and consistent flavor. I thought that was cool. How about you?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because like the Carnival Carnage sample is 90s, and you throw that over a 90s Memphis trap beat, it's dope because it's the same era. And then it's like, oh, he's referencing this old school musical aesthetic of which he helped popularize horrorcore that started in Memphis, that made all these millennials and like younger people check for it. Marshall McLuhan, we referenced him before. He's a Canadian pop culture philosopher who talks about how the medium is the message. That's powerful when you're sampling a genre that you help popularize and then putting your take on it. And back in the 90s, Memphis rappers weren't checking for ICP. But now, like if you're a Memphis rapper and Shaggy does a verse for you, like you've made it. And I love the lyrics. I love the punk rock anti-authoritarian vibe in the second verse. I'm a fiend and free to flee the restraints from the corporate machine. And then he's dissing people who have major label deals who have to like play the TikTok game and shill whatever the labels are telling them to shill. Learn to lip sync, play your part. Then you can get one of them on the charts with a dart. And so that's like number one with the dart beat, you sold out your art. So number one with a bullet means it's something that's racing to the top of the chart. So yeah, I like that chart, art, dart, a lot of internal rhymes. And saying number one with a dart instead of saying a bullet implies that he's like a heat seeker on him and they're going to be taken out because it's not real staying power.
Man, that is dope. And it's funny because, like, you're right. Those are some heavy lyrics. Like ICP, they've kind of dissed the mainstream in a lot of theatrical ways, usually, like Shooting Stars on Mighty Death Pop, Shocking Off of Cryptic Collection 3. But you're right. Like, this is more of a grounded kind of real insight into, you know, what independent careers like versus a mainstream career. You're right, man. Those lines are dope.
Yeah, 10 Juggalos is priceless. That is literally like nerdcore, not to like flex on my own subgenre, but like all the business moves I've made, and I think the dudes with staying power and women and non-binary people in the scene with staying power have made is that idea. Like you double down on the few fans, and that's what gives you staying power. And
right.
that's like how you do it. You got to be outrageous and consistent, and you're not trying to chase that chart.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It goes without saying, like, that cult following is priceless. And a lot of artists, industry artists, try and get it. And the labels try and basically manufacture these grassroots movements because of how much value there is in it. But little do they know it has to happen organically. And the Juggalos is, that's as organic as it gets, man, and as dedicated as it gets. And it's so cool to hear Shaggy all these years rapping about it.
Yeah, no, it's like this is like his punk rock 101 MBA in business course for young rappers. Right. I mean, it's like what Kuma was talking about last episode about you do it for the culture, you do it for the love of the music, and you do it for the craft. Like MC Chris made this interesting metaphor back when I was like doing more stuff with him. We were on tour in England, and he said something like, when you're a craftsman, it's like the honor of becoming really good at designing a shoe. You spend 30 years and you're like, oh, this person in this village in the olden days makes the perfect leather shoe. They spent their whole life. It's their craftsmanship, and you get better and better and better and better at this one thing. This person's not trying to like work for Nike and run a factory. They're trying to make a really good shoe. And that's what Chris did with like Star Wars rap and his specific lane, and like using the longevity from Aqua Teen to like do that stuff. And like, just he got really good at being MC Chris, and that has worked for him. And like, that's like the thing with like the attention economy that people don't want to talk about and like don't really think about, that like there's something to be said for sticking around. That's what like, I feel like I feel like I'm name dropping, and I don't mean to, but when I saw Weird Al last time, we were talking about like when I was in LA and I had coffee with him, we were talking about like what it's like to not give up. And like, even when you have ups and downs, and obviously his trajectory is like light years beyond anyone, but that there's something to be said for not quitting because you just love the craft so much that you just stick around no matter what. Right. And then people can't ignore you. Now he's an institution. They make movies about him, his life, and ICP too. And like, these are the heroes. But like, if someone you love has a hit, like, good for them. And it's all good. Some people might hate ICP. A lot of people hate nerdcore. A lot of people don't like underground stuff. That's dope. Whatever, you know. Anyway, tangent.
Hell yeah, man. But it's so true. And yeah, man, like, I just love how ICP is finally getting their props because of their staying power. And that's the good thing out of all this, you know. And the underground industry is constantly changing as well. And it doesn't come without its downsides being independent. But yeah, man, I think there's a lot to talk about this song because it's almost like a case study into that difference between underground and not underground.
But you know literally the one thing that makes this all possible is when they drop bangers like this, records like this every once in a while. Because if your music falls off, you know, everyone is hit or miss. But like, when you come with a song like this, it resonates with that whole thesis of like doing your own thing and having staying power pays off. But if you drop like 10 years of whack records, people are going to stop checking for you, you know? So,
dude, yes. And man, like, another thing with being underground, like, age, I don't think as big as a factor either, right? Because like in, you know, the mainstream, you know, whatever you call it, youth is a big part, especially in music. But in the underground, you got those cult following, fans, jugglers, whatever you call them. Like, you don't have to worry so much about that because they're going to ride for you no matter what, eh?
Yeah, I mean, these they're 50. Tech Nine's 50. ICP's 50. Weird Al's in his 60s. Like, KRS-One is getting up there. But here's the thing that's unique about the underground and hip-hop. It's like, hip-hop is a relatively new genre. Like, the oldest rappers are in their 70s, really. Maybe early 80s. And they're still alive. And so there were never old rappers because rap wasn't that old.
Right.
And the famous rappers would, like, it's sad, a lot of them would die young. So, like, you never got to see it age. So now we're seeing this thing where, like, this postmodern culture from the late 20th century has become globalized, and music and pop will always focus on youth. Like, that's the hip and hip hop, right? Like the young, because young people pay a lot of money, and there's a lot of money in youth and beauty and all that. But underground juggalos don't care if you're violent grandpa.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's fine. It's my first, I'm doing a festival in Montreal. It's my first show after turning 40 that I played. And that's fine. I'm a 40-year-old rapper. I'm like, it's cool. I never thought I'd be doing it this long. But it's like a milestone for me, and I'm still doing festivals, and it's still fun as hell. So let's go. Let's roll till the wheels fall off.
Dude, that's what it's all about, man. You got that staying power. Me, personally, I'm betting on my youth and beauty. Specifically my beauty, I think, is what's going to get me to the top.
You've got the staying power. You've been doing this for a minute, and you're just getting started, bro. Yeah. I mean, it's a quest. It's a quest for an ultimate groove. Wait a second. What's track 7?
Man, love this track, dude. And this is I've been looking forward to this all day because I know you got a lot to talk about with this track, and I'm going to let you do so. I'll just basically give a quick background on it. Basically, first of all, it's part 1 of 2 title track, which is crazy. I don't know any album that had like a 2-part title track with like one track as the first half of the title and the second track is the second half. Thought that was noteworthy, super dope. This and the final track are produced by DJ Clay and Shaggy, 2 dope. The only other thing I want to say is that I just thought it was cool how Shaggy didn't go a super straightforward route. Like, it would have been like, not that there's anything wrong with doing that, but I pictured like him telling the story of him going to, like, I don't know, different places around America, getting like the coolest beats from a drum machine or something. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this, which is the story of a guy with a magical box who collects screams and is going to all kinds of places around the world collecting screams from mythological beings, and to eventually make the ultimate groove, which I won't spoil that how it happens. But yeah, Lars, dude, what do you think about this track?
Well, the first thing that struck me is that it's like, on Mad Professor from Jekyll Brothers, it's really a Jay solo song at the end. He creates Shaggy,
Right.
And Shaggy's just like, what up, y'all? This could be a sequel to that. So Jay's made this guy. He is the protege who's his own professor, who's now doing his own mad science. So I feel like this could be a sequel to that.
Didn't even make that connection. That's dope. This
fits a long line of very special sort of subgenre of songs. On the last tour Schaefer and I were on, we had like a 7-hour drive, and we spent the whole drive discussing songs that fit this context. So it's a song where the chorus of the song is referential to a song itself. So the song acts as a metonymy. I use that word like all the time on this show. A metonymy being something that references something else, right? So like an example would be Purple People Eater. Do you know that song? It's like an old 60s song. It's about a space alien.
Okay.
And the chorus is what the Purple People Eater is singing. So the song is within a song. My song Signing Emo about Hearts to Hate, for those of you who don't know, it's a 20-year-old song that wrote about this emo band. And then the chorus is the chorus of the band, and the verses tell their story and how the music industry treats them. So like the chorus is a chorus from something else. Radio Kill Switch was the Schaefer the Dark Lord song where it's about these guys who are marooned on this raft, and they have this radio, and it only picks up one channel, and it's a station that plays the same song over and over again, and that's the chorus of the song, and the verses are about them going crazy. Like, that song is fresh. But
tight.
An ICP song that's done this before is Haunted Bumps from The Tempest, I think. And it's a na 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 na. The stereo is the chorus, and the verse is about what he's doing with it. So it's the deconstruction thing where you take a song, write a song about that. So in this, Shaggy's reverse engineering it and trying to fit the musical elements together to find the ultimate groove, which then manifests itself in the song. So it's a song about a song, and it's not necessarily the hook throughout, but it's built up to reference that. So it follows this very specific set of songs that I think is really, really cool. This artist, John Allison Weiss, this song called Back to Me is another one. Anyway, you can check it out. It's just a cool type of songwriting that I love. So you want me to like dive into how I feel like this is a metaphor for ICP's career and the ultimate groove, and how it specifically fits Shaggy's place in ICP?
Dude, I would love to hear it, man. Take us to school.
Okay, so with that long preamble, so he fights a mummy, a vampire, a demon, and a man with a curse, and he finds a holy man at the Devil's Tower, which reminds me of Close Encounters. He captures the sound that comes out of it in a magic box, and he releases it into the Earth's core, and the ultimate groove is found. So here are things that like reflect ICP's career. So it's a global journey. So Shaggy's going around the world trying to find different musical styles to find the ultimate groove. ICP has explored many genres and different indigenous cultures throughout the Dark Carnival. They've mixed a lot of sounds like hip hop, rock, like Memphis trap, modern music. They've faced a lot of challenges. ICP has faced a lot of challenges. Shaggs is facing a lot of challenges. Criticism, being panned by the hipster press for not understanding magnets. The horror elements, the mummies, the vampires, the demons, and the magic box, which I feel like, I think about Riddle Box. I think about just like all the elements in ICP where it's like you can capture something special, and when it tries to let go, that gives you suffering. Like In My Room from Hell's Pit. Like Angels Are Falling. When you find love, it's really painful to leave it. So you're trying to hold it, but music is something that won't ever leave you. But when you want it to leave you in the right way, it can be life-changing. So he releases the groove into the earth, and it symbolizes ICP's music. But like, whereas like Violent J's perspective has always been about like trying to figure out the pop culture and the musical aesthetics that have defined ICP, Shaggy's always more about like connecting it with the roots of hip hop. So I feel like that's why he's finding the groove, whereas Violent J is kind of like the melody, the vocals, the lead. Shaggy is always like the chords, the harmony, holding it down in a way that allows that to keep going. Like that's why I feel how I feel like it sums up a lot of ICP's career and Shaggy's role in ICP. What do you think?
Yeah, dude, it is so funny because ICP, of course, like, Violent J and Shaggy, they play two different roles, and that's a really dope analysis of those roles. And then when he has the groove, him dropping to the earth, like I didn't know what the significance of that was, but that kind of makes sense too. Like him connecting it back to the roots and where hip hop and everything came from. So I think that's tight.
Well, it's like I work with a lot of artists in my Lit Hop Academy program, which is like a mentorship thing I do. And I'm always telling them, don't be too precious with what you create. Like keep creating, let it go. And so this is like what Kuma was talking about. What we were talking about is like letting go of the ego. We're here on this earth for a short time. You find something beautiful, you let it go and you put it back in the earth. And that's how your legacy becomes sustained. And specifically, just briefly, I don't want to go too deep into it, but think about the cultures he finds in the song. He goes to Egypt and captures the sound of a mummy, right? Malenko, all the aesthetics is like Egyptian and then like Middle Eastern vibe. So it's like, that's his introduction to starting to find the groove. That was most people's introduction to ICP, the Egyptian aesthetic with Malenko. He goes to Transylvania to get the sound of a vampire. Nothing's Left. On the day when the wagons come, I just pray that they let me out. That I always felt like that was an aesthetic connection to the Dracula mythology and the Transylvanian Romani of the nomadic people in the wagons from Transylvania. That whole idea that like they say gypsy, which isn't the right term. I think that's like a problematic term now, but the idea that like vampires, the vampire culture comes from that Transylvanian vibe. So that's Jekyll Brothers, like their mainstream peak. And then going to Japan to find the sound of a demon. I think about Yum Yum Bedlam, how they find their footing with the second deck of Joker's cards and like, you know, fighting the demon of what it means to keep the longevity going. And then going to Africa, getting the sound from the cursed man. Like hip hop has its roots through the griots that came to Southeast US through the slave trade, right? Like
right.
Black music has its roots in Africa. So going back to the origins of hip hop, the back of the American pain, the pain and everything that's given American music its like its identity. And then the Devil's Tower, right? Like at the end of Close Encounters, that's where they communicate with music through the aliens. And the way that they're able to find global harmony is going back and forth with that melody. And so it's like, that's where he finds peace and it makes sense of all this. And then he comes back and puts it into the Earth's core. So it's like, that's like what he's had to go. And then it's like the prescient metaphor of going underground again. That's how ICP's kept going.
I didn't think of that one either. Yeah, the underground metaphor. That's dope.
So yeah, that's what's up. In the Devil's Tower, I think about, you know, there's a lot of psychopathics from outer space and like extraterrestrial vibe, which is like their mixtape underground culture era of their touring. So it's like, it touches on all their themes. It might just be because it's like Jungian archetypes that people always think about, but like, it's a specific like painting of ICP's career. I bet Shaggy would like say, oh yeah, Lars, that's what I meant. And I'm sure it's like kind of like we're reading a lot into it, which we love to do, but yeah. I thought
that's man, dude, that's what Hatchet Chat's about, man. And I was gonna bring up to you. Well, also, first off, shout out to Shaggy's Japanese folklore knowledge as well, because like he referenced 3 different spirits. I think in the third verse, yokai, hanyas, and onis. And I looked them up. They're all like 3 different spiritual Japanese folklore entities. And I was going to ask you too, dude, because I know like you schooled me on like Faustian legend and stuff. Does this give you any of those vibes? Because he's like going to almost the occult, you know, or the spiritual side, trying to encapsulate it for the purpose of the ultimate groove. Like almost got that Faust kind of Robert Johnson.
Webster. Yeah, like he's selling his soul to get this. He's having to make these deals with these occult figures. You remember in Behind the Paint when Jay talks about having his panic attacks and he's like trying to make a deal with God and God's like, you're traveling around the world spitting these horror lyrics, like hooking up with juggalettes, like, and now you want to go good, like good luck.
Right.
Like this idea that that if you play with the dark side enough, even when you're in there as kind of like an emissary to try to like have this manichaeistic flip, you're still, having to sell part of your soul. It's like, wrestling's fake, but these wrestlers still like have a hard time walking at 80 if they survive, right? Like it takes a toll.
So that takes us to track 8, the final track, which is the second half of the title track, The Ultimate Groove, once again produced by DJ Clay and Shaggy 2 Dope. And basically, you know, the track before leads right into it once Professor Shaggs drops the magic box into the earth. And supposedly this is the ultimate groove, and it's just super kind of heavy, bass heavy, banging track. Kind of has chants almost referencing some old school rap again, like you were mentioning, Lars. Almost like the chants are almost like, I don't know, like 2 Live Crew or something, but it is over more of a new school trap beat as well, with some of that mixture of the old and new flavor. And just Shaggy's just talking about how it's the ultimate groove. What are your thoughts on this one?
It's a fun closure to the record. It doesn't really have much of a theme other than like Shaggy's rapping about how he's tight, but it's a fun song. You know, it's like it rounds out the record well. And 10 out of 10, I would recommend this album.
Agree.
I've been playing Illuminati Don't Want Me for My Son, and he likes that song in the car. So they're touring, right? But separately this year.
Yes, that's right. So that's what's one fresh thing that we can talk about real quick as we close out the episode. It was announced a few years back, of course, made headlines, not just in Juggalo news, but music industry news as well. Violent J announced that he had a heart condition, AFib, so they were planning to slow down. They were still going to do like their annual events, and they said roughly one show a month, but they were going to stop touring as hard as they did and actually do a farewell tour. Now, that got totally blown out of proportion in and outside of the Juggalo universe, because even Juggalos, were commenting like, oh my God, I can't believe ICP aren't playing shows anymore, when the announcement was clear as day from the beginning. It's just they weren't going to be touring on that level. But even that seems to not be the case anymore, because like you just mentioned, Shaggy and Violent J both got pretty substantial solo tours going. Of course, Shaggy's doing a tour to support this album. It's called the Quest for the Ultimate Groove Tour. And Violent J is doing the Three-Headed Monster Tour with Ouija Mac and Isham, which we're going to be covering their dope release, Obliteration, on the next episode very soon, so stay tuned for that. But one other thing I wanted to mention in regards to this topic, Violent J was on a Juggalo podcast. Shout out to Thuggalo Show. He was actually a guest. They had him on for an interview. They have a dope show, tons of cool guests. And Violent J was on there, and they asked him about all kinds of different stuff. And one of the things they asked him about was his health. And he said that his AFib is actually, for the time being, resolved. They can't even detect AFib. They went in with a procedure that basically fixed his AFib. Now that he said that it could come back, but right now he's like a totally normal person, which makes sense because he's doing, a legit tour. So maybe that farewell tour is no longer planned. I don't really know, but it's dope that we get to see some of that touring flavor.
Interesting. And I mean, it's like, obviously they're doing the gathering, and yeah, that's interesting, man. Well, we'll keep everyone updated. We'll talk about the Three-Headed Monster next episode. And thank you for listening. This was a fun episode. Whoop, whoop. I'm MC Lars.
I'm MC Snax, y'all. Whoop, whoop. Much clown love.